The meeting is now being recorded.
Thank you, Chris. So we're here today regarding submerged lands lease application B220176. The applicant is Frey Dock and Barge. Again, my name is Eric Wilson. I'm the Resource Protection Assistance Bureau Chief with the Idaho Department of Lands. And I'm also the meeting coordinator tonight, or this afternoon, in this proceeding. In order to assist IDL in deciding whether to issue a submerged lease to Frey Dock and Barge and in drafting the terms and conditions of any lease that might be issued, IDL is recording this meeting. Please note, this is not a contested case proceeding under Idaho Code 58-1305. It's also not a public hearing under Idaho Code 58-1306 that is subject to judicial review. This is simply a public meeting to gather information and input. It is 3 p.m. Pacific time, July 27th, 2021. We're conducting this meeting by video conference and in person at the Department of Lands office in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Please make sure all your cell phones are in silent mode and that your computer and phone are muted until it's your turn to speak. Again, we don't have anybody online except Nick, and we already got him on mute. This meeting is related to Frey Dock and Barge submerged lands lease application for winter dock storage in Windy Bay on Hayden Lake. Following the final order for North Idaho Maritime's application L95S5884, signed by the director on December 3rd, 2020, the department was directed to use submerged lands leases for dock storage operations beyond the line of navigability. In general, the line of navigability is determined by the length of legally permitted encroachments. The department is evaluating the winter dock storage lease applications, including this one, using the public trust doctrine and existing case law. Issues such as impact on navigation, fish and wildlife, water quality, recreation, and aesthetics will be evaluated. These terms can be used to mitigate potential impacts to these public trust values. The Idaho Department of Lands is responsible for administering the rules governing leases on state-owned submerged lands and formerly submerged lands. IDAPA 20.03.17. Winter dock storage is a commercial use of the lake. It requires setting semi-permanent anchors on the state-owned lake bed. As a result, this activity requires a submerged lands lease. We're here to consider the application and the written record, take public comments, and discuss whether or not the proposed lease should be issued. After the application is evaluated, a recommendation will be sent to the director of the Department of Lands, along with a draft lease if IDL staff determines that a submerged lands lease would be consistent with the submerged lands leasing rules and the public trust doctrine. The director will then evaluate whether or not the lease should be issued, and if so, whether the proposed terms are appropriate. No deadlines for this decision are contained in statute or rule. Materials related to this application have been posted on our website. The meeting was advertised in the Coeur d'Alene Press on July 13th, 2021. Notifications were sent to nearby littoral owners and other potentially interested parties. I will take additional comments during the meeting as follows. First, the applicant or their representative, and then members of the public who have signed up to provide comments. Then the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond to any issues raised and provide any additional information. Before I begin taking comments, I'd like to go over just a couple more items. Please be respectful and courteous of everyone here. This meeting is being recorded, so be sure to speak clearly. When it is your turn to provide comments, please begin by stating and spelling your name if needed. There will be no swearing in. This is a public meeting in which we're taking public comment, so please direct all comments to me. I may ask questions of those providing comments to ensure I fully understand the application or the questions, but there will be no cross-examination or questioning of the applicant or commenters by anyone else present. If you do have any questions, please direct them to me and I will facilitate an answer for you. I may limit comments if they are duplicative or ask a presenter to remain on task if the comments start wandering. Presenters may defer to legal counsel or specialists, such as landscape architects, marine contractors, engineers. If you wish to provide written comments, please submit them to me either following your comments or submit them to the department by 5 p.m. Thursday, the 29th. Written comments will be afforded the same weight as all verbal comments that I take today. Are there any questions before we begin accepting comments? Okay, as I call your name, please come to the microphone if you wish to speak. We will start with the applicant, Tommy Frey.
Thank you. So I bought this business 28 years ago. And the previous owner had a deal with the Spalding family, and this worked out great for us and for him previously to that. It was our storage, storage area where we had a row of piling about, I'd say 30 yards offshore, and store our winter dock storage in there and everything else. We didn't, at that time, up until probably a year ago, we just stored in there. And they were kind enough to let us store in there and in front of their property. And then Kim called me about a year ago and said that they didn't want to have storage in there any longer. So we went in and took everything, took our storage out. And she said she was kind enough to let us store in there last winter while we were trying to figure out what we need to do to come into compliance with the state. We've looked at every option known to man as to where to store for wind and ice, and trying to make everything work. We decided, after speaking with the state and looking at all the different options, that to not affect the Spalding families, to go off 300 feet offshore and drop some 2,000-pound anchors with a lighted buoy on them to raft up the storage in for the winter time. From basically, we start storing the 1st of October and everything's out by usually by the first part of May, depending on water level. And at what point we would remove the buoys and be out of there. So previously our storage, like I said, was about 30 yards offshore, 30, anywhere from 30 to 35. And this would be 300 feet, utilizing no piling and anything else, just 2,000-pound anchors with lit buoys on them. That would be well outside the line of navigation. We also cable up our whole storage, the entire perimeter of it. Each dock is tied in 4 points, and then we cable the entire perimeter after it's all in and anchored up. At this point, you're only in about 52 feet of water. Really limited. We don't have ice flow in this particular day. We don't have wind in this particular day, which is the key to everything for our storage.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple. So actually, I'd ask Chris Gozo if he could bring up the application and go to page 13.
Can do. Give me 1 minute here.
Okay. Maybe I need a new prescription for my lenses, but I was having trouble reading some of the distances and lengths. Yeah.
It's hard to do to still get full reference of where it needs to go.
Right.
Okay, and let me know if that looks like the correct document as well.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah, I think page 13 is the last one. Yeah.
So that's it. So
Yeah, so,
our storage, where we used to keep it was right in along the shoreline here. Ken's dog there. So what we're trying to do is pull it out as far as we can, not to have
Sure.
any impact on them anymore. They've been kind enough. So
sure, and you said it was 300 feet?
yes,
From the shore?
300 feet. This green line represents 300 feet.
Okay,
And this triangle is what we need for the storage area.
right. And what's the width and length then of the
I can't see
storage
that.
area? Yeah. That's, you see my problem.
Of the square, of the rectangle?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's 400.
217 by 300.
I think it's 400 by 262.
Yeah, 300 on the, 300 on the paperwork, it's 300 width,
Got it.
and then so I divided.
I think it's-
217.
I can't.
It's a 163 by 400. 162 to 162 on one side and 164 the other by 400.
By 400, okay,
400. That's
That was 1.5 acre.
oh yeah, that's right. 1.5 acres.
okay, excellent. So this is the same general location where you've done dock storage, but you were up against shore or closer to shore before. So how long have you done winter stock storage out here?
I've done it for 30 years, and then before that, the guy who owned the company before me was there for probably 30 years before that,
Okay,
because he was the original one that talked with Mrs. Spalding.
mhm,
Probably 60 years, I'm not sure. I couldn't swear to that, I don't know. I know we've been storing there for over 28.
okay. All right. So previously you had, I believe you said piling? Okay, and now have all those piling been removed?
They're still there. I can remove them, that's not an issue. I think there's 3 there.
Okay. They're about 30 yards offshore. More, more.
It depends, the lake fluctuates so much right now.
Yeah, I hear it's a little lower right now, yeah. Okay. How many customers do you have typically?
For dock storage
Mhm.
on this lake, 60. For actual docks.
Mhm.
They're the ones that have to be stored or else they just get destroyed.
Right, and that leads me to another question. So why is dock storage needed on Hayden Lake in particular?
Well, the state sets the high water mark at 2239. And if that high water mark it's in the parking lot of Honeysuckle Beach, it's not a realistic, and then it doesn't stay at any one level for the whole year. It starts dropping, 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 dropping. And so by October, if those don't come out, we're going to be sitting on the ground, the ones that can't be pushed out on an anchor system. And then we store, you probably can't pull it up, but we store from basically Point Hayden all the way around English Point, because when the storms come in the winter, they come directly into that. And when the ice breaks loose, they go straight into that. And so if you don't store any of those, the ice will push them all the way up the beach and destroy them.
Okay.
I know there was another question as to why, well, why don't you build pier docks? And I can show you an example right now, but you can't, it's not a possibility. Hayden Lake, it has to be floating.
Right, yeah, well, I think you answered my question. You talked about the ice movement in the
Yeah.
winter time, and is it on for a particular part of the lake where that is an issue?
It's
Okay.
and that's why we only store 60 on that lake, is because the ice flow affects it basically from Point Hayden around English Point, down English Point, and then right on the tip of Yellow Banks, which is opposite of where the storage would be. So there's, limited spots where there absolutely have to be stored, but if you don't, they're gone the next year,
Mhm.
last year.
Okay. Great. And so for the proposed dock storage area, so you do 2,000-pound anchors,
Mhm,
a couple of those, okay.
mhm.
And then you detach buoys,
A lighted buoy, yeah.
a lighted buoy, okay. And would the buoys be out there year round then?
You can take them in. So they're detached, they're simply.
Okay, so you just have a diver go down and, okay. So in the summertime, there's nothing on the surface, okay. Okay, and what are customers typically charged for winter dock storage?
What do we charge? It's minimal, I think it's $425. And that includes your ramp. You're picking it up, taking it to storage, bringing it back, putting your ramp back out, putting the jet ski ports out, putting all that out.
Mhm.
Generally do it just as a service for customers. When you build a dock, they have to have someplace for it to go in the winter in those particular spots. And then, you do it in the hope of down the road when they need something done, that they're gonna come to you because of that.
Okay, so it's kind of a value added for getting a dock.
We don't make any money on dock storage.
Hmm.
It's just, we just don't. It's we're at the worst time of the year, the busiest time of the year and everything else. So it's just, actually, it's a nightmare for us, but it's a service that has to be provided.
Okay. What sort of issues have come up historically related to dock storage? Do you have problems with people out there messing with stuff or dumping stuff?
Yes, well, I mean, we've had issues with people going out and throwing our ladders in or throwing a ramp in and stuff, because you can't go watch it all the time. It's just realistic. And then you get people that think that, this is where I'm supposed to take my old dock to dump it type of deal. Which, we've had the sheriff probably 30 times telling him, on his way to Rockford or anywhere else, towing stuff. Where are you going? Oh, it doesn't go there,
Mhm.
So it's something that has to be realized by the county and the sheriff's department and everybody else. I think that they are to be honest with you, the biggest offenders of that. And it's something the state's gonna have to address too at some point too, with it, getting an area where deadheads can go and junk can go. It doesn't go into a particular spot that's, either Powderhorn or Rockford or here or, any of us, or down at Harrison, any of those local storage areas where, but it's hard to stop, but, we do everything we can to stop it.
Mhm. Okay. I think those are all the questions I had unless, no. Okay.
I have, Mike has it too. I got 280 letters from clients.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've seen that, there was an individual application
I,
requesting that, the need for storage.
okay,
So it might be something that
I don't think we have those posted, but I could be.
You never made application for Hayden? You made application
Yeah, a
for.
lot of, about half or at least 60 or 70 of those are from Hayden Lake. So they say Hayden Lake on it.
Okay, so you'd like us to review the Rockford support letters
Yes.
and try to see if there's
Yeah,
Hayden Lake?
I know there is.
Okay.
The guy says, they say Hayden Lake.
Okay. You gave us a stack of letters for the Rockford.
Yeah, and there's, yeah, I think I just put them all in the same.
Okay, yeah, we can separate those out.
Part of the record,
and
record.
We'll get them posted and add them to the record, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Great. That's all I have for you this time.
Thanks.
Okay. Susan Olson?
I have a question for
Yeah,
you.
come on up to the podium so we can all hear you better.
Well, I'm not here to oppose your request. I think there's a need for it. And I'm kind of affected by it because I'm the next dock within the viewing distance. I can see all the docks there. And I do have a question. That is not Hayden Windy Bay. That is O'Rourke Bay.
It's on the other side.
Yes. My only concern is when we have a windstorm or a big rainstorm, some of your docks float away. And it has, some of those docks have hit my dock, has come into my little, between my dock and my shoreline, hitting my ramp. I would just like to know what is my responsibility for getting rid of those derelict docks.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll circle back around to Mr. Fry later.
Okay,
with that.
my other concern is, like you said, some people think that it's a dumping ground for their dock that they no longer want or use. And they put trash on those docks and it goes to your little area. And those things fall into the lake. The little white bumper things, you know, all those things, just falls into the lake. Whose responsibility is that to clean that up? Because there are, like, for example, this summer so far, I have grandkids and we go kayaking and playing around there. And the kids go in the water and I go in the water and all these little bumper things has those screws, nails sticking up. You know, I try to get them out and I put them on the shore because I, at the time, don't have a way to get them back to shore to throw them out. But that's my concern only. Whose responsibility, who is held accountable for the garbage, the garbage dumps? Thank you.
Okay, good, thank you. Kim, is this Brandt or Brett?
It's brought.
Brought, okay. Yeah.
But actually, I prefer Russ Spalding go first. And then I can talk a little bit after Russ, if that's fine.
Okay, that's fine. Russ, come on up.
Thanks. So Tom's right, Spalding's been there for, well, my entire life. And when this project started, 50, 60 years ago, whatever it might have been, there weren't 60 docks. There were 2, 3, 4. Okay, it was more of a, sure, let's, help each other out. Right now, it's at, as Tom says, 60 docks plus their, attachments, if they have attachments or whatever it may be. This has got to the point where it's almost overwhelming. In fact, it's not almost, it is overwhelming. You put 60 docks tied together, and I don't care what the weather's like, they're rubbing against each other. And parts and pieces do fall off. On top of that, you do have things that are on top of those docks that do fall in the water. I can tell you, it can be a rope, a chain, it can be nuts, it can be bolts, it can be nails. It can be a flag, it can be a chair or a plastic jig. It's amazing what these things drop off. And I think the question comes is, why are we asking Tom to pull off this area at this time? It's not because we don't think there's a need. There probably is a need, but it's because it's not being taken care of. And I'm afraid wherever he puts it, this isn't going to be addressed. We've asked him to address it. We've asked him to clean the area up. I personally have gone through with my own boat and picked things up out of there and fill a boat up and nothing's flat. The stuff gets moved around with the, I call it tides, but with the movement of the water. You don't know where the stuff goes. You could spend hours right now picking up stuff out of there. And so it's not that there isn't a need. I'm sure along the way there's a need. But there's got to be a better way than tying 60 docks together and having them constantly drop stuff into the water. Wasn't the initial intent. And I don't think it is healthy for the water. I don't think it's healthy for the community. It's sure not healthy for our beaches. We're looking at a situation where we just politely said, hey, clean it up or move on. And he's decided to move on. We are left with, we have a dock there that's been there all summer that's tied to one of the pilings. And it's a nice little dock. But again, who's responsible for this nice little dock that's sitting there? I don't know where it came from. I'm not sure if it's his. I don't know whose it is. But I don't think that nice little dock should be sitting in front of our property all summer long. We have this kind of thing attracts, like we said before, all kinds of stuff. It could be a derelict dock. Now, I understand if someone brings a derelict dock to this area, it's not Tom's necessarily responsibility. But he has a company that creates that kind of derelict dock situation. And so he is responsible for those things. We have, I know of one, I think there's 2 docks right now that are high and dry on the beach, because I'm sure somebody brought them over thinking it was the right place to put it. I don't think people are intentionally putting something where it doesn't belong. But that's a completely different issue. The issue is this kind of activity, if you have a business that's doing this kind of activity, you are responsible for those kinds of things that happen around it. And unfortunately, we have not been able to convince Tom to take care of that. We've asked, it wasn't last year, I had a talk with Tom several years ago and said, hey, please realize what's going on here. So we've worked with Tom, I think in a positive manner. He's a good guy, good businessman, but we're as landowners having a problem. Now, I'd also like to address, I have another piece of property on Hayden, 75 feet of frontage. And I know that during the winter, the water drops, okay? And my ramp, it's basically high centered. But what I do is I unhook it, I bring it around, and I tie it to my pilings. Now, can I have the ice that he's talking about? I don't have the ice that he's talking about in the far side, but I do have ice that comes through there. You properly take care of it, and you properly actually, get it in the water and let the water move up and down, and not have it just go on top of the land. My walkway will be fine. I don't have to bring it back around. That's a service he could provide. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but that's a service he can provide. That's an alternative service than moving 60 docks into the same area, if that makes sense.
It does. I know in the research we've done, it's that combination of wind and ice that
Sure.
is really destructive. And even if you have a place where you can get it out into what's still open water, if you have wind driving ice into it, then
It takes it.
it's going to kill it.
It is, and it does, and I understand that part of it. But you don't necessarily, I think if you look at the reasons back 50 years ago when you brought 3 or 4 docks over there, well, there's enough room in different areas that if we talked around it a little bit, you possibly could do that. I would also tell you there's other areas that might be better suited for this. And I was thinking more of the fisherman's area where the public access is. somewhat where his, barge has been moored this whole year. Shallow water. It does get dried. It's like this time of year, it's an unusual year, but usually it's a decent area to test up. And it's public land. It's not in,
Is that county or fish and game?
I think, is that what it is? It's out, it's a launch that they have out there.
The only issue with that is we looked hard at that.
Mhm.
There's just not enough water depth.
Well, there's not enough water today. This year is an unusual year, so I would give you that, yeah.
We looked at all of that in there. Trust me, we looked at every place, especially here, because it's so protected, and it does ice up, it just locks up. You're not getting moving ice.
Right.
But every water depth we took, because of the oaks and everything else, it wasn't feasible there.
Mhm.
And that would be the ideal spot, without question.
Yeah, to me, that seemed
And
reasonable to look at.
we looked, trust me, we looked at all of that. We looked at the back of Windy. We looked everywhere. And I understand what you're saying about the ramps too. We take off probably 80% of the ramps on the lake.
Mhm, just for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the ones that have to go to storage, go to storage. The rest of them, we do exactly what we do. We come around with that boat and pick up all the ramps and put them on the docks and just, then the dock just stays floating out there where you don't have ice issues.
Sure.
Ice flow issues. But yeah, we did look at that. We looked at, and I understand where you're coming from in every aspect that you're saying, every aspect. That's why I wanted to push out 300 feet. And so then people don't look at putting stuff there. There's going to just be nothing there in the summer.
I would hope that happens, but on the reverse side, it just tends to attract that no matter where you're gonna put that, you're gonna have that attraction. But also you're gonna have, I figured to be 80 docks, you're saying 60 docks, and that's fine. But you can have 60 docks sitting out there rubbing together, and quite literally the stuff that drops off, that's amazing. And you know that as well as I do.
We'll circle back to that.
Oh, certainly.
Okay, did you have anything else?
Well, and I did want to mention the Windy Bay thing. I think that was inappropriate to put Windy Bay on there because it was on the backside. And when I went looking for this, I was expecting it to be in Windy Bay. I questioned how many people would be here if they knew what was that. So it might take another awareness, if you want to call it that, to the public to say, hey, listen, this isn't in Windy Bay. This is actually on the other side of Windy Bay.
So is this just east of?
Windy Bay, well, I
Windy
would
Bay?
call that north, on the north side of Windy Bay. This is
Windy Bay is right about here.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's on
so
the other
it's
side.
around Windy
That's a
Point.
work bay right there that
Would you
he's
like me to open
in.
up like a Google Earth, so you can look at it real quick?
No, that's okay.
I'll address that. I believe I was the one that called it Windy Bay.
Oh, sure.
It's off of, it's off of Windy Point.
Yes.
And you guys know more than I do because you guys live there. But I don't really know if it's O'Rourke Bay. It's not really even in the bay.
I know, and that's the thing, it's not really in a bay. I know it's a protected because of the way it sits. But you're coming out, I thought the application said 600 feet, not 300 feet, to be honest with you. So if we look at that application, does it say 600 feet off the shoreline? Or does
It
it say
says 300.
This says 300, but in the application, does it say 600 or 300? That was just a question to look at, is all I'm
Yeah.
asking. So if you look at that, see exactly where that's gonna be.
Okay.
And then also I read that it was gonna be 300 feet wide, not the dimensions he's talking about right now. So thanks for your time, I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, appreciate it. So back to
Kim Brock.
Kim Brock.
Yes. I too, am Kim Brock. I grew up, it's always been there before me. It is a special place for us. We go camping there. We have to look out at the water when we go camping and stuff. And that's our view. That's our place. I don't ever remember the storage ever really being up there. But I have never been told of or spoke of any deal other than my brother, Mark, that he said that he let Tom, not my grandma Thelma. There was never any deal ever made. A deal made is with a contract, usually cash too. There was never any deal made. And I was always told, whatever you do, do not take money from Tom Frey. So we don't want him locked in there. We never made it a business with Tom Frey. It was just strictly a nice thing that we were doing. Now, I guess last year I did talk to Tom Frey about cleaning up stuff, and they did some of it, and they did kind of a fairly nice job. But at the same time, I still have a lot of pictures. During the winter time and the months, this here. This is one of our winter views here. This is right here off of our little tiny dock. This is some of the stuff, but this is how huge it really is. It's massive. It seems small, but it's really massive. And that would actually help to really have things land in the water, okay? And so even right now, when I was there the other day, there was a little 4-year-old boy and his uncle were playing on my beach. And I walked over and said hi to them, wanted to know who they were. And they didn't realize, anything. And I was nice to them. And I watched them make a sand castle. I thought that was pretty cool. But then the little boy walks over, they find an old log with spikes and stuff in it. And they pull it over into the sand and leave it. And then they drive off. And so I'm having nails and spikes and stuff in the water still. And it's going to take me years to recover, picking the stuff up out of the water, the sharp things, the nails, the plastics that nobody else is pulling out of the water. They clean up the outside, but not the inside is how I have been feeling about it. And so like I say, this is quite massive if you look at that. And this is one of the things I'll turn into you so people can see the view of what I'm looking at from my property. Now, one of the other problems, and like here's a picture, I called them on this one last year because here's people with one of the docks they had left there. We got squatters. You can call them and say, please don't go there. They don't care. They'll ignore you. Call the sheriff. They get rude with me. They think it's public access there. They really are rude. They stop to go to the bathroom. They do a lot of stuff on their property. And this is the picture. And this is one of the things, if you were to grant him this against my wishes, this is his thing that he's had parked on our property. Okay. And there was 2 docks down here that he had parked down here. Very disappointing to me because he went down and checked it out. Yeah, the dock he said wasn't his. He had sold it to a gentleman one day. And then the same day, the guy said he found a different dock and Tom wouldn't give him back his money. Tom said, you can park it there and I'll help you get rid of it. Tom didn't ever help him get rid of it. It was there for 2 years at least and I asked Tom about it and he says, I'll drive over and look at it. So I'm thinking, okay, Tom's working with me. He drives over to look at it and he says, I don't know whose dock that is. There's a for sale sign on it and a roof on it. It's a very unique dock. It's not a dock that you could mistake at all. It's an old party dock that's been down the way from us. But it was there with a for sale sign on it. And on the pole, the for sale sign, this is what Tom Frey could not see. This is the for sale sign parked in front of my property that Tom could not see when I asked him to go look at that. And he said it was parked on their property. This is not taking care of the issue. When I called the guy up, he told me that Tom Frey said that he could park his dock on my property because he already paid for the dock. And Tom Frey was not going to give him that money back. So that's their issue, not mine. But the issue that it wasn't taken care of properly in the very beginning is not right. So, yeah, and I don't think that everybody does mean to do wrong, but sometimes people do say, well, I don't know what to do with this. Well, because the docks have already set a precedence by being there, people still think that the area there on there is a great dumping spot. And if I come up here and look, if you look where his is at right there, my little area, this comes down this way. My dock is going to be more like right here. This is my property right in this area. And he is right smack dab in the middle of my property. So I'm the only one that is the person that has to really deal with this right now. And it's not fair to me. I don't have a boat. I don't have a dock. I don't need to have any of his services, but his service wants to be offered in front of my property that I have inherited after 80 years. We've owned the property in the family for at least 80 years, I believe.
The Spalding.
Yeah, the Spaldings. Yeah, so I'm just highly disappointed. And then when I asked Tom to clean up the property, he said he would. And I believe like these logs were removed. Like there's boards and stuff that float in, you know. And then here is the dock that was left last year when I asked them to clean up the property that's been there for over a year. That's now high docked, high centered on my property. And I'm supposed to now pay to have this removed because other people think it's okay to dump their stuff on my property. And this here is my property lines right here. There's 32 acres there.
The shaded area?
Yes.
Okay.
It will, I believe, will depreciate my land value with the stuff that gets put on there, the trash. There's a big white barrel that's floated in there now. Russ says there's chains, there's all sorts of stuff that floats in there. And so as far as the deal goes, the property was with my grandma, and then it went to my mother, and now it is to me. And so I don't really know what he thought the deals were other than a gentlemanly friendship. I would like to know what other options Tom Frey has also tried to come up with. That this doesn't seem to me like there are any other options that he actually came up with. This is the only thing that I'm being offered today to look at for Tom Frey's company, but this is the only place in Hayden Lake that he could possibly do it. Oh yeah, and then as far as calling the sheriff because somebody's parking stuff on your property, I have tried to call the sheriff. There's no sheriff that's going to show up to help me. If I call the sheriff, you know as well as I do, I'm going to get an answering machine, okay? And they're just going to basically flip you off and park on your property and go up and poop in the woods like they want to. So, and I want to aware the people, the 250 people that wrote these letters, were these all Tom Frey's customers? Are these people that are just people that have just decided to write a letter to say this? Because I don't believe unless these letters were actually solicited, people are going to sit down and write that letter. Not 250 people I know would come up with the same idea unless it was actually solicited. And I do believe there are other ways, again, or other places to store this facility. I feel like my kindness was taken advantage of and I was blown off. And so, and here, like, here is a picture from last year. There's a piling right here. There's a dock right here. And there's one of his other docks over here. And so, and there's still pilings there. Like he says, I would love the pilings removed. I would love that junky dock removed, you know, but it's not his responsibility. So now it's my responsibility because he's been there. So I just don't or think it's fair to me. When he does work for me, I have a boat. I can go out and check his work. I have to take his word for it. That's a big beach. That's not fair. I expected that dock to be gone. My cousin came and take me for a ride. I asked him, I want to go see the property. So I go down there later on in the year and see that dock sitting there on my property. Not fair, not happy, very disappointed. And I do believe, again, that as far as the people that would have showed up today, that calling it Windy Bay was wrong. And I also think that they should have called it the proper thing. Susan here, I called her last night because she's my neighbor up there. I asked her if she got the letter and she said no, she did not even get the letter. That probably, if she got it, would have been sent to her house. This is her summer home. So she did not get the letter because they're sending her property taxes, this announcement to there. I live in Otis Orchards. I would never pick up a Coeur d'Alene newspaper and read that. So I thank God I got the letter from the state so I could be here today. to speak my piece. I don't want to see it out there. I don't want to pick up any more garbage. I don't want anybody else coming back to the property to come sit on his docks. So that's about all I think I need to say.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, if you could leave us the photos, that would be fabulous.
Let me get them in order for you, okay? And I'll
Okay.
send it back to you.
Great.
Okay. Oh, you can have them. I used that one I brought in just for this reason.
Yeah, and if you want, you can email those to us before the 29th or by the end of the day on the 29th. It's up to you.
What, these?
Yeah,
Oh, no,
We
I'm just
can
giving,
have
I'm just
these.
giving,
okay.
I'm just giving you
But
these.
what I'll
Okay.
probably do is make a copy so that Tommy can have a copy, unless you don't need a copy, Tommy.
We'll get them posted too. So,
Okay, so I'll take these and then I'll get you.
Okay, great.
okay, great. Thanks, Amity. Okay, so that's all we have signed up for public testimony. If I could ask you a couple more questions, if you wanted to offer any closing comments. I'll go ahead and start with my questions. So let's see. Apparently sometimes the docks do escape and
Ours don't because they're cable, but if there's junk that's up on the beach and then the water comes up, and I have seen hers with her ramp down there. That's not one of our storage docks. It's something that's coming out of there, here or coming out of wherever off the beach. And I remember when that happened to you like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But that's not coming out of our storage. I mean, that could be coming from anywhere. I mean, that's for, like she's saying, a white barrel up on the beach now. I know we probably picked up 50 this year, just going around the lake, doing different jobs because the 2 major storms we had last year blew a bunch of them out of docks, you know. And I understand where Kim's coming from in the aspect of, you know, like the dock that's in there now. She called me and I said, I don't have a clue where that came from. It is a nice dock. I mean, it's got to be somebody's. It's got Trex on it. It's everything. You know, I mean, it's not like it's a derelict dock. I mean, it's somebody's frigging dock that's tied up there. And she asked me if I go over and I went over and looked at it. It's got you know, brown composite Trex on it, which you don't see very rarely on the lake. You know, normally it's gray. I had not come across it. You know, it looks like kind of like an approach dock, actually, like 6 by 30 or something like that. I had not found out where it goes yet, but, you know, I didn't go around the lake and look specifically. I just, you know, I know every dock on that lake, basically. I just, you know, I know Anderson has one that has brown on it. I know that Nancy in the back of Sportsman has one that has brown on it, but they're both have all their approaches, so. I think that having storage out that far offshore and, you know, having on buoys instead of piling or eliminate that issue for them. And you know, I'm more than happy if she doesn't want the piling in there to go cut the piling off for her. I think there's 3 in there.
There's one that's submerged that looks like it's been touched too.
And that one I went and looked at when she called me, and I don't think that's a piling. I think that's an actual tree.
Oh, it looked like a pine.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
can see it really well.
It did to me too. I might be able to check it now because the water is down. But I can pull that out of there too. That to me looks like a tree, like a dead. But I have no problem in there cutting off the old piling and getting rid of them.
at the,
Lovely, yeah.
Is that, do you push barge into them?
We either push a barge into them or just hook them up to the tugboat, snap them, they snap 2 feet below the mud line.
Okay.
And if you can't do that, I have a hydraulic chainsaw and just hop in the water and cut them off at the.
Yeah, when they were doing some piling removal around the Coeur d'Alene River in 2010 era, they found that they just bumped into them with.
Generally, you just run them down with the barge.
Exactly, yeah, and they just snap right off at the,
Yeah, they snap off
Like
about that far below usually.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll probably have something, we'll want those piling removed, definitely. Let's see. So with the 60 docks rubbing around together through the winter, when the docks are stored, do you try to pull everything up and out and pile it on top, or what?
All the ramps go onto the dock. So what we do is we come in first, go around the lake where all the docks are stored, where we're picking them up from. We have a boat that picks up the gangway, puts it on the dock, picks up the jet ski boats, puts them on the dock. And then, then we come back around and detach the docks. We usually make it 3 different tows. We take 15 off of English Point, take 20 off of, or 15 off of Point 8, and then like 20 off of English Point. And that'll be 1 day or 2 days. And then we'll go over to Sunset, or not Sunset Beach, to the left of the point there, and grab those, that community dock. And there's 4 docks we grab in there. We grab a community dock and then 4 docks along that shoreline. Get that up, and then we pick up 1, 2, 3, 4 on where Russ lives, up from Russ's place, right on the point on Yellowbank's Point, and then that's it. So what we do is we generally take the ladders off and put them on the dock. You have to tie 4 corners on it just because you can't tow them across the lake if they're not tied that way. So, we can do a lot with our customers too, and we send them a letter before we do dock storage. And we'll send them a letter in August and request what they want done. Meaning, you have a jet ski port, do you have a ladder, do you have a tarp, do you have a ramp, what do you want us to do for that particular day? And we definitely could, put a note in there requesting them to tie down anything that's on the dock. If they do chairs or ladders, and most of them, 99% of them do. They put a bungee cord around and chain them to the canopy frame, just because they don't want to lose their chairs or their ladder or whatever they got on the dock.
Right.
So, it's something we could add to our bulk mailing that we send out every year too.
Have you ever, well, what's the lake depth now where you're storing stuff? It's like 10 feet, 20 feet?
You mean where we were previously? It depends. It really depends. It probably goes from 15 feet to 20, 25.
Okay. So if you look down in there, what would you see on the bottom of the lake?
We went through there after Ken called. We went through there and got everything that we could grab there. I don't know if still finding stuff over there or not, but
Yes.
but it changes with the water level. You know what I mean? Is that or off the derelict dockers off, whatever, I get what they're coming from, and that's why I think this is the solution to that problem. You don't have anything in there at all, except for 300 feet out for, 4 months out of the year.
Okay. Let's see. when thinking about other options, you said you looked at that BLM piece of property is too shallow. Were there any other areas that might work around the lake, or is this pretty much?
I mean, we looked at Windy Bay on the other side. There's literally, it's so narrow in there that you wouldn't be able to get a boat in or out of there when we had storage in there. And then if you go to the back of Windy, it's kind of shaped like a boot. In the back of Windy, it's not wide enough either, and then it gets super shallow there. We looked at the back of O'Rourke, and everything's going to go around there. Plus, you have ice coming. That point is what protects. And I wish that point goes out another probably 100 yards past that picture, 200 yards past that picture, and protects everything from that ice flow that comes this way. And that's the problem with the back of O'Rourke. You have an ice flow that comes straight this way. You know, that's why everything's so protected there. I mean, we looked at underneath the power lines, you can't get into Monkins. It's too shallow to get in through the neck. We looked at going in the back of, to the left of Sportsman's back there. Right now, it's everything's dry, you know, I mean, and to have those things sit on the bottom and pop in flotation, popping everything out, that's the reason why we store them.
So have you ever called the sheriff about issues?
Multiple times.
Okay, and does he give you the same response?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I've actually pulled up to them while they're towing stuff, and going, where are you taking that? Or over there, you know. I mean, anybody that has a big tract of open land where there's nothing on it has the same issue. I mean, I know Kim was saying about how I don't have a house or anything on my place on Yellow Banks, on the tip of Yellow Banks. We came down there the other day and there was kids, whole family eating hot dogs on my grill.
On your grill.
With their boat in my slip. And I'm like, excuse me. And the guy actually says, hey, do you mind if we finish feeding the kids? I mean, any place where there's not a house or there's a big tract of open land, you run into this stuff. And it's terrible. I mean, I understand where she's coming from. It happens to us all the time, and it happens to anybody you know, I mean, it happens to the left of between Paul Leonard and the Falls. You know, there's a huge community dock there, and there's a big strip of open land there. I mean, there's probably 10 derelict docks up on the beach there right now.
And the sheriff doesn't even know where to take them.
And the sheriff will take them to Honeysuckle, and then the city will scream at Honeysuckle, or, you know, the city will scream at the sheriff because they can't have that stuff tied up to the public boat. You know,
Right.
something that we used to address all the time. We did a thing with the Boy Scouts and Buell Trucking for 15 years, where we volunteered the tugboats and went around and gathered up all the stuff, and Buell Trucking volunteered to pull it all out of the lake and got rid of it. They took it down to St. Mary's and burnt it all.
Mhm.
We do it with the Boy Scouts every year. And then the city or the state wouldn't allow us to do it on the dike road anymore, so you don't have any place to pull it out of the lake. So, and that was all volunteer work. You know, we did it all with the Boy Scouts and with Buell Trucking. I mean, they volunteered 5 trucks, and actually the IDL used to come out and help us. They bring their boat out and go gather stuff up, and we'd all tow it into Honeysuckle Bay and then pull it out of the lake. I just went by the wayside. Now I think that the city or lake, or there's a group on Hayden Lake that's pulling stuff out at Monkins, which is helping. You know, the problem is right now you can't get in Monkins, so it's tough.
Okay. Does the sheriff have a designated boat on Hayden, or do they just come over there when they?
They have one now, supposedly,
Okay,
because they called me to build a dock to keep a boat full-time at Honeysuckle
okay,
Beach. Right now, I believe on like Wednesday through Sunday from, I don't know, until dark or something like that.
sure, sure, okay. Okay, well, that's all the questions I had. Mike, got any? Yeah. Anything, any last words or?
I just think this is the best solution for what we have to do on this lake in order to keep, if you don't store docks, what's gonna happen is you're gonna wind up with 40 or 50% of those docks on the beach on a yearly basis that are destroyed. You talk about debris in the lake, it's gonna be 15 times what it is right now. If it's not allowed to do, it just makes it. It's kind of between a rock and a hard spot. Don't store the docks, they get up on the beach and you're spitting, logs and timbers and canopy frames into the lake and all that stuff's gonna be floating around all summer long. Then you build them a new one and this process recycles itself over and over and over. It's just on this lake with the way it fluctuates, and the amount of ice we get and the flow of ice we get and the winter storms we get, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of how many are going to be destroyed and wind up in the lake every season.
And I think I read in your application that because there is bedrock near the surface and because of the fluctuating lake levels, there's not a lot of pier docks.
No. I can show you a picture. And I can email this to you too. So this is the high time of the year right now.
Yeah, hers is down 4 to 6 feet.
He's 6 feet tall. So if you built a pier dock, where are you gonna put?
Oh, okay, he's standing underneath the pier dock. Nice.
The gangways are so steep, it's like climbing Everest right now. This is.
Yeah. Yeah, you can email that in to Mike.
Yeah.
He can get it to me. That'd be great.
No,
That's a pretty steep walk, yeah.
no, and can you imagine tying your boat up? You can't, there's nothing. In the spring, the water's here. And this time of year, end of August, it's down here. You just can't, there's no way to build a pier dock that will function on Hayden Lake, just because there's no set elevation.
Yeah, there's no controls like there are on
Zero.
Court Lane and Priest and.
They have a dike that controls flooding. And where that dike is set is at 21, 22, 39, whatever they call ordinary high water, which means that the boat ramp's underwater. And from that point, it just goes like this, because there's a natural feed into the aquifer right off the Leeds Point right there. And the drier it gets, and the less moisture we get in, the more it sucks that into the aquifer there. I bet you in another month, we're gonna be down another foot. So.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you all very much. Let's see where we are.
You want me to send them to Mike?
Yeah, send those to Mike. He can get them to me. Yeah. Okay, great. And having reached is now 4:06. I will now adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for your attendance and your participation. Appreciate it very much. And we'll endeavor to provide a recommendation to our director within 30 days.
Thank you, Chris.
And thanks, Chris. We'll be back around, 6 PM our time, 7 PM your time.
Sounds good. Did you want me to go ahead and stop the recording as well?
Yes, please. Thank you.